You know that feeling when something small, a kind word, a warm cup held between your hands, a moment that asked nothing of you, lands somewhere deep, and the whole body softens. Tonight, we're going somewhere very safe with that feeling, into what gratitude quietly does to you. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, perhaps lying in the familiar weight of your own bed, the room settling into quiet around you, allow yourself this space. You've carried enough today. We'll move through 100 psychology facts about the science of gratitude, from the very first neurons that fire when you feel thankful, to how that feeling reshapes your body across a lifetime, to the question of what it means to be a grateful mind. This journey through the healing science of gratitude exists because curious, gentle minds like yours found their way here. Sharing this space with someone who needs a softer night creates a pathway for another tired soul to rest. One quiet moment of kindness, one sleepy soul at a time. Your presence here matters deeply. Let yourself settle now. Feel the places where your body meets the surface beneath you. There's no need to hold on to anything tonight. Let the thoughts from today dissolve, the way tension dissolves from a hand that finally unclenches. Your only task right now is to breathe, and to let this voice carry you gently forward. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting where thankfulness lives quietly between heartbeats. Let your mind soften with what the body already knows. And now we begin. Gratitude is one of the oldest emotional states scientists have identified in human beings. Researchers studying ancient texts, evolutionary biology, and cross-cultural anthropology have found evidence that gratitude exists in every human culture ever documented. It appears not as a luxury of comfortable living, but as something woven into the architecture of what it means to be human. From small hunter-gatherer communities to vast modern cities, people express and feel gratitude across languages, rituals, and generations. The word itself traces back to the Latin root gratia, meaning grace or thankfulness. Long before we had the tools to look inside the brain, humans sensed that gratitude was something worth returning to. Now, for the first time in history, science is beginning to understand why. The brain does not experience gratitude as a single, isolated event. When you feel genuinely thankful, multiple regions of the brain activate at the same time. Brain imaging research has identified activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, the ventral striatum, and the insula, regions responsible for higher thinking, emotional awareness, reward processing, and social connection. Gratitude is not a simple feeling. It is a complex neural event, a chorus of brain regions working together. Researchers first mapped this neural landscape using functional magnetic resonance imaging, and what they found was quietly remarkable. The emotion of gratitude, it turned out, uses some of the most sophisticated real estate in the human brain. When gratitude activates the brain's reward system, it triggers the release of dopamine. Dopamine is sometimes called the motivation molecule. It is the same chemical involved in the pleasure of a good meal, the satisfaction of finishing something you worked hard on, the warmth of reunion with someone you love. When dopamine flows through the brain's reward circuits during a moment of genuine thankfulness, It doesn't just create a pleasant feeling, it reinforces the behavior. The brain, in a very real sense, learns to return to gratitude. It learns that noticing what is good feels good. Over time, this becomes less an effort and more a natural way of moving through the world. The biology of gratitude is, at its core, a biology of returning. Gratitude also stimulates the production of serotonin. Serotonin is often called the happiness hormone, though that name barely captures what it does. Serotonin regulates mood, sleep, digestion, and social behavior. It helps the brain settle. It reduces the urgency of rumination, the mental habit of replaying worries, cycling through regrets, rehearsing fears about tomorrow. When serotonin rises, the noise inside the mind grows quieter. Research involving gratitude journaling found measurable increases in serotonin associated with the practice. Something as simple as writing down what you are thankful for a few times each week nudges the brain's chemistry toward calm. The body responds to gratitude as it responds to care. Because, in a way, that is exactly what it is. There is a third neurochemical that gratitude touches, and it may be the most intimate of all. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, is released during acts of connection. Holding someone you love, being seen by another person, expressing or receiving genuine thanks. Research published in the journal Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience found that when people expressed gratitude to others, oxytocin levels increased measurably. Oxytocin softens the social nervous system. It lowers defensive vigilance, increases trust, makes us feel safe enough to be present with another person. Gratitude, it turns out, is one of the body's most reliable pathways to this chemistry of belonging. Every time you say thank you and mean it, the body responds as if it has just come home. Scientists have a name for the way gratitude rewires the brain over time. It is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural pathways throughout life. Every time you activate the circuits involved in gratitude, those connections grow stronger. Neuroscientist Donald Hebb described this principle more than 70 years ago in a phrase that has become foundational in brain science. Neurons that fire together, wire together. When gratitude is practiced regularly, the brain doesn't just feel better in the moment. It builds the structural scaffolding for a more grateful way of perceiving the world. The path becomes easier to walk. The habit of noticing what is good becomes, gradually, the way the eyes naturally fall. Research by Dr. Joshua Brown and Dr. Joel Wong at Indiana University offered one of the most compelling early demonstrations of how gratitude can lastingly alter the brain. In their study, participants who wrote gratitude letters for 3 weeks showed greater and more enduring neural sensitivity to gratitude in the medial prefrontal cortex when scanned 3 months later, compared to those who did not practice gratitude. The brain had not just felt grateful in the moment. It had become more attuned to gratitude over time, like a muscle that remembers the shape of what it has practiced. The grateful brain grows more fluent in its own language. Gratitude affects the amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm system, the structure most closely associated with fear, threat detection, and the fight or flight response. When you regularly practice gratitude, the amygdala's reactivity to stressors gradually decreases. It does not lose its ability to protect you, but it becomes less likely to misfire, less prone to treating the ordinary frustrations of a Tuesday as if they were genuine dangers. Researchers describe this as a kind of calibration. The amygdala, with repeated exposure to the neural state of gratitude, learns to rest more often, to hold its urgency in reserve, to let more of life pass through without reaching for the alarm. The parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of the nervous system responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery, is activated by gratitude. When you feel genuinely thankful, the amygdala signals the parasympathetic branch, and the body begins to downshift. Heart rate slows, breathing deepens, muscles release their holding. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, begins to fall. This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable physiological shift, observable in heart rate monitors and blood tests. Gratitude, in a very literal sense, tells the nervous system that you are safe, and the nervous system, trusting that signal, begins the long, quiet work of repair. So yes, gratitude is already changing us, before we do anything deliberate about it. Every genuine moment of thankfulness, a breath of appreciation, a quiet recognition that something is good, nudges the body toward a calmer state. Researchers are beginning to understand this as more than a pleasant side effect. The neural and physiological changes associated with gratitude suggest it may be one of the most accessible forms of self-care available to human beings. No equipment required, no prescription, no minimum age. And the science, accumulating over decades from dozens of independent research groups, points in the same direction. Gratitude is not just a virtue, it is a biological resource, one that the body appears to have been designed to use. Heart rate variability, the subtle, beat-to-beat variation in the timing of your heartbeat, is one of the most sensitive measures of how well the nervous system is regulating itself. A high heart rate variability suggests a nervous system that is flexible, responsive, and resilient. A low heart rate variability is associated with chronic stress, burnout, and greater vulnerability to illness. Gratitude practice has been linked to improved heart rate variability. When researchers measured the cardiac responses of people who engaged in regular gratitude exercises, they found a nervous system that was, in measurable terms, working better, more adaptable, more capable of recovery. The grateful heart, it turns out, beats differently. Cortisol, the hormone most associated with the stress response, follows a daily rhythm in the body. It peaks in the morning to help you wake and initiate action, then gradually declines through the day. In people experiencing chronic stress, this rhythm is often disrupted. Cortisol remains elevated for longer, interfering with sleep, digestion, immune function, and mood. Gratitude practices help restore this rhythm. Studies measuring salivary cortisol in people who practiced gratitude regularly found lower overall levels and a more natural daily pattern. The body, finding regular moments of genuine thankfulness, learns to trust that rest is safe, that the alertness of survival can, for now, stand down. The immune system is not separate from the emotional life of the mind. Research over the past several decades has established that psychological states directly influence immune function, a field now called psychoneuroimmunology. Gratitude falls within this story. People who practiced gratitude regularly in controlled studies reported fewer illnesses, shorter durations of common colds, and faster recovery times following minor illness. One mechanism appears to involve the body's inflammatory response. Chronic stress promotes inflammatory signaling that, over time, contributes to disease. Gratitude, by dampening the stress response, helps ease that inflammatory load. The body in a state of appreciation is, at the cellular level, a body more capable of protecting itself. The brain, when it processes gratitude, activates the anterior cingulate cortex, a region deeply involved in empathy, conflict resolution, and what researchers call social cognition. This is the part of the brain that helps you understand another person's experience, that reads emotional tone, that holds your awareness of how your actions affect those around you. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, one of the researchers involved in early brain imaging work on gratitude, proposed something that illuminates this finding. He suggested that we are not thinking machines that feel, but emotional machines that think. Gratitude, activating the very center of our empathic brain, may be one of the most social of all human emotions. There is a meaningful difference between genuine gratitude and surface-level thankfulness, and the brain knows it. Brain imaging research has shown that authentic, wholehearted gratitude, the kind that arises naturally from a real sense of appreciation, activates the reward centers and emotional processing regions of the brain in measurable, lasting ways. Gratitude that is performed out of obligation, or forced when it isn't truly felt, does not produce the same neural signature. The brain, it seems, is not easily fooled by politeness, but it responds deeply to sincerity. This finding has gentle implications for how gratitude is practiced. The science suggests that one genuine, specific moment of real appreciation may matter more than a long list of obligatory items recited without feeling. Specificity strengthens gratitude's effects on the brain. Saying, "I am grateful for my family," activates some of the regions involved in thankfulness. But saying, "I am grateful that my daughter reached for my hand this morning without being asked," engages far more of the emotional processing network. The more particular and vivid the gratitude, the more deeply it registers in the brain's memory and reward circuits. Researchers studying this phenomenon suggest that detailed, emotionally specific gratitude works, in part because it forces the brain to reconstruct a real moment, to re-experience something that was genuinely good, and the brain, re-experiencing it, receives some of the same calm that the original moment provided. In 2024, a landmark study published in JAMA Psychiatry provided the first empirical evidence linking gratitude to longevity. Researchers at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health analyzed data from nearly 50,000 older women participating in the Nurses' Health Study. They measured each participant's levels of gratitude using a validated questionnaire. then tracked mortality outcomes over the following years. The findings were quiet but meaningful. Those in the highest third of gratitude scores had a 9% lower risk of dying from any cause over the study period, compared to those in the lowest third. When researchers looked specifically at cardiovascular disease, the reduction in mortality risk was 15%, even after controlling for health status, income, social activity, religious involvement, and optimism. The association between gratitude and longer life remained. What might explain the link between gratitude and a longer life? Researchers propose several pathways. People who feel genuinely grateful tend to take better care of themselves. They are more likely to maintain regular health appointments, to exercise, and to maintain social connections, all of which independently support longevity. But the Harvard researchers also found evidence that gratitude has a direct physiological effect. It reduces cardiovascular stress, lowers inflammatory markers, and supports the nervous system's capacity for recovery. The grateful life may simply be at the level of the body, a less physiologically costly one, a life in which the alarm is not ringing as loudly, as often, or for as long. Gratitude changes how the brain processes negative events, not by erasing them, but by placing them in a different context. The prefrontal cortex, when activated by gratitude, engages in what psychologists call cognitive reappraisal, the ability to reframe an experience without denying its difficulty. Research shows that regular gratitude practice reduces the amygdala's intensity of response to stressors. The difficult thing still registers, the person still feels it, but the volume at which the alarm sounds is lower. The interpretation that follows is more measured. Gratitude does not ask us to pretend that hard things are fine. It asks the brain to remain aware that fine things also exist, and in doing so, creates a more accurate, more balanced view of a life. There is a concept in positive psychology known as the negativity bias. The human brain, shaped by millions of years of evolution in environments where threats were common and often fatal, naturally pays more attention to negative stimuli than to positive ones. This was adaptive once. Noticing the predator mattered more than noticing the flowers. But in modern life, where most threats are psychological rather than physical, the negativity bias can become a source of chronic distress. It directs attention toward what went wrong, what is missing, what might go badly. Gratitude practice is, in part, a gentle retraining of this bias. It interrupts the automatic drift toward threat and redirects the brain's attention to what is present, what is safe, and what is good. Sleep and gratitude are connected in ways that researchers have only recently begun to map clearly. A foundational study published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research found that trait gratitude, a person's general tendency toward thankfulness, predicted better sleep quality even after controlling for all other personality traits, including neuroticism. People higher in gratitude fell asleep more easily, slept longer, and woke feeling more restored. The researchers identified the mechanism through which this works. Pre-sleep cognitions, grateful people, as they lie in the dark waiting for sleep, are more likely to think positive, calming thoughts. They are less likely to rehearse worries, less likely to ruminate on the day's difficulties. The mind, in a grateful state, arrives at the threshold of sleep, more prepared to cross it. Research from applied psychology strengthens the sleep-gratitude connection with practical findings. Participants in one study who kept a gratitude journal in the evenings fell asleep faster, slept longer, and reported waking more refreshed than those who did not. The act of writing down what you are thankful for, even briefly, even just a few items, appears to serve as a kind of mental transition. It signals to the brain that the day is complete, that there was something worth noticing in it, that the work of today can be set down. For a mind prone to carrying the weight of unfinished thoughts into sleep, this simple ritual provides a kind of permission, a closing bracket around the day. A 2024 study examining gender differences in the gratitude-sleep relationship found a notably stronger association between gratitude and sleep quality in women compared to men, though the relationship was present across both. The researchers also found that gratitude acted as a buffer against the sleep-disrupting effects of social stress. People who felt isolated, misunderstood, or like a burden to others were more vulnerable to poor sleep. But those who also maintained a practice of gratitude showed some protection against these effects. Gratitude did not eliminate the pain of loneliness, but it appeared to soften its interference with rest, as if the body, holding some warmth inside itself, could better weather the cold. The frequency with which gratitude is practiced matters, but perhaps not in the way you might expect. Research by positive psychology scientist Sonia Lyubomirsky found that people who wrote gratitude entries 1 to 3 times per week showed greater increases in well-being than those who practiced daily. The reason appears to be habituation, the brain's tendency to adapt to repeated stimuli and begin to take them for granted. Practiced too mechanically, too often, gratitude can become routine and lose the quality of genuine noticing. 3 times per week appears to be close to a sweet spot, frequent enough to build new neural pathways, infrequent enough to preserve the sense that each practice is a real act of attention. The science suggesting that, in the cultivation of thankfulness, less can sometimes be more. These early findings point towards something larger than a simple wellness suggestion. The science of gratitude is beginning to reveal that this emotion, ancient, universal, and deeply embedded in the brain, is one of the central pillars of human flourishing. Not because it makes hard things disappear, but because it helps the nervous system remain capable of repair, because it supports the chemistry of connection and calm, because it asks the brain to practice a different kind of perception, one that includes, alongside the difficult and the missing, the real and present evidence of what is good. That practice, sustained over time, appears to change the brain's functional patterns. The grateful mind may not be happier because it has more. It may be healthier because it has learned to see differently. Let's pause here and rest in this moment. Right now, your brain is quietly at work, sorting through today, deciding what to keep, what to soften, what to let go. You don't need to guide it. It already knows how. Every cell in your body has been doing this longer than memory can reach. This act of sorting, of returning to balance, of making peace with what happened. You are not just listening tonight. you are participating in something very old, something the body has always known how to do. Now we continue. There is growing research interest in what scientists call prosocial gratitude. Gratitude that is expressed outward, toward another person, in a way they can receive. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has noted that this form of gratitude, witnessing someone else express sincere thanks, or being on the receiving end of genuine appreciation, may produce even stronger neural effects than silent private gratitude. Brain circuits linked to empathy and social reward light up with particular intensity during these interpersonal moments. The implication is quiet and worth holding. Gratitude is not only an inner practice, it is also a social one. Its full biological power may only be unlocked in the space between two people. Gratitude and the brain's architecture have a measurable relationship. Research has found that people with higher levels of trait gratitude show differences in key emotional processing areas. Regions involved in stronger emotional regulation, greater resilience, and a more stable response to stress. The brain, shaped through the regular practice of thankfulness, becomes more capable of managing what life places before it. Gratitude, in this sense, is a quiet form of structural care, the gentle, patient work of building a mind that can weather more without breaking. Receiving gratitude activates the brain differently than giving it. And research suggests that being on the receiving end of genuine appreciation may have particularly powerful effects. When people listen to authentic stories of receiving gratitude, accounts of real moments in which someone felt truly seen, truly helped, the prefrontal cortex showed robust activation in brain imaging studies. Being appreciated, it appears, does something to us at a neurological level that is distinct from our own private thankfulness. It tells the brain that we matter to the social fabric, that we are seen, and the brain, ancient and social as it is, responds to that message with something very close to relief. The relationship between gratitude and depression has been studied extensively, and the findings are consistent. People who regularly practice gratitude report lower levels of depressive symptoms. Research suggests that gratitude interrupts the cognitive patterns most closely associated with depression: catastrophizing, all-or-nothing thinking, and persistent negative self-evaluation. By asking the brain to locate something real and good, gratitude requires the prefrontal cortex to overrule the amygdala's tendency toward threat-focused scanning. This is, in essence, the same mechanism targeted by cognitive behavioral therapy. Gratitude does not replace treatment for depression, but it appears to engage some of the same neural machinery, offering a gentle, accessible pathway to the same capacity for reappraisal. There is a word researchers use when they study the connection between gratitude and resilience: buffering. Gratitude buffers. It does not prevent hard things from happening. It does not make people immune to loss, grief, or failure. What it appears to do is reduce the intensity and duration of the psychological impact. People with higher baseline levels of gratitude tend to recover from stress more quickly. They are less likely to remain in a state of acute distress for extended periods. They have access to something, a broader emotional context, a neural pattern of noticing what is present and good that helps the system return to baseline more fluidly. Gratitude, in the language of research, is not armor. It is a more efficient road home. Blood pressure and gratitude have been linked in studies measuring cardiovascular health. People who maintained regular gratitude journals showed lower blood pressure in clinical measurements compared to those who did not. The likely mechanism involves the parasympathetic nervous system. When gratitude activates the rest and digest response and eases the body's stress chemistry, the cardiovascular system benefits directly. The heart, operating under less hormonal and neurological pressure, can work more efficiently. Blood vessels remain more relaxed. Blood pressure falls toward a healthier range. The grateful body is, among other things, a cardiovascular body that is working a little less hard. The story of gratitude and aging is one that researchers are only beginning to tell. A study published in the Journal of Psychiatric Research in 2025, drawing from data on community-dwelling adults over the age of 65, found that higher levels of gratitude were associated with better cognitive function and larger volumes in the right amygdala and left fusiform gyrus. The amygdala, in this context, serves as an emotional processor involved in memory formation, social recognition, and the sense of meaning embedded in daily experience. A larger, more active amygdala in older adults is associated with better memory, greater emotional intelligence, and stronger social connection. Gratitude, sustained across a life, may leave a gentle mark on the very architecture of the aging brain. The link between gratitude and loneliness offers one of the more tender findings in this field. Loneliness, the subjective sense of social disconnection, is now recognized as a significant public health concern associated with cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, and shortened lifespan. Gratitude practice does not create social connection where none exists, but it appears to change the quality of the connection a person already has. Grateful people report feeling more connected to the people in their lives, more aware of the small gestures of care that are easy to overlook, more attuned to evidence that they are valued. The lonely mind, practicing gratitude, does not always find more people, but it sometimes finds more relationship inside the people it already has. There is a physiological story behind gratitude and the immune system that researchers find worth exploring carefully. Interleukin, ZEX, a marker of inflammation in the body, tends to be elevated in people under chronic psychological stress. Elevated interleukin 6 is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorders, and accelerated aging. Research on the stress-inflammation pathway suggests that gratitude's ability to soften the body's stress chemistry may, over time, be reflected in reduced levels of these inflammatory signals, though direct studies on this specific connection are still accumulating. The body, held less often in the state of alarm, spends less energy defending against perceived threat, and more energy on the quiet, essential maintenance that keeps cells healthy and systems functioning. Gratitude appears to have a meaningful relationship with pain, perception, and tolerance. Researchers studying patients with chronic pain have found that those who engaged in gratitude practices reported lower subjective pain levels and greater ability to manage their experience. The mechanism is not fully understood, but researchers point to the modulating role of the prefrontal cortex. When the brain is engaged in positive emotional processing, including gratitude, it may alter the way pain signals are weighted and interpreted. The body's experience of discomfort is always, in part, a story the brain tells itself, and the brain, in a state of appreciation, appears to tell that story more gently. The social dimension of gratitude extends beyond the individual nervous system to the fabric of relationships themselves. Research involving romantic partners found that on days when one partner expressed gratitude to the other, both partners reported feeling more connected, more satisfied in the relationship, and more willing to discuss difficulties openly. Gratitude in relationships appears to function as what researchers call a relationship maintenance behavior, something that actively preserves the quality and resilience of the bond. It signals to the other person that they are seen, and being seen, in the architecture of human attachment, is one of the most fundamental forms of safety. The link between gratitude and physical activity, observed in early research, has been reinforced by more recent studies. People who maintained a gratitude practice were more likely to exercise regularly, more likely to follow through on health-related goals, and more likely to report satisfaction with their overall level of physical care. Researchers believe this connection is mediated by dopamine, the same neurochemical that reinforces grateful behavior also reinforces health behavior. When the brain learns to notice and appreciate what is good, it becomes, in a broader sense, more oriented toward maintaining the conditions for well-being. The grateful mind and the well-cared-for body appear to grow together, each making the other more possible. Gratitude journals. Perhaps the most commonly studied and recommended gratitude intervention, work in a specific way that researchers have identified. The act of writing creates a small but meaningful distance between the experience and the reflection on it. By translating a moment of appreciation into language, the brain moves from purely emotional processing into narrative processing, engaging the prefrontal cortex and reinforcing the memory. The moment is consolidated. It becomes, in a quiet way, more real to the brain than a moment that passed without being named. Regular journal practice means that more of the good that happens in a life gets metabolized into neural memory, and the brain, holding more of the good, begins to look for more of it. Not all gratitude practice is equally effective, and researchers have been careful to note the limits of what the science shows. Forced gratitude, the kind practiced reluctantly, under social pressure, or while suppressing real negative emotion, does not appear to produce the same neural or physiological effects as genuine appreciation. Some researchers caution against what they call toxic positivity, using gratitude to silence or bypass real pain. The most effective gratitude practice, according to the research, acknowledges difficulty without being consumed by it. It holds both the hard and the good at the same time. This is not a performance of optimism. It is a more honest form of attention, one that resists the brain's tendency to see only threat. Without pretending threat does not exist. The science of gratitude has reached a kind of turning point. For decades, the study of positive emotions was considered a lesser priority in psychological research. overshadowed by the study of illness, dysfunction, and distress. But the evidence has accumulated steadily. Gratitude reduces cortisol. It activates pro-social brain circuits. It improves sleep, lowers blood pressure, supports immune function, and is now associated with a measurably longer life. Researchers at Harvard, Indiana University, UC Berkeley, and institutions around the world have contributed pieces of the same picture. Gratitude is not simply a pleasant sentiment. It is a biological state with measurable, protective effects on the body and the brain. The science, at this point, is not asking whether gratitude matters. It is asking how deep the roots go. Take a slow breath. Notice where your body is right now. The weight of it. The warmth. We've been exploring something tonight that the body already knows. That noticing what is good is itself a form of healing. If this kind of gentle science is something you'd like to return to, a quiet subscribe keeps this space here for you, and for others who need it. Let's drift onward together. Gratitude appears to have a unique relationship with memory. When we feel genuinely thankful for something, the brain flags that moment as worth encoding, worth preserving in long-term memory. This is partly a function of the emotional arousal involved. Moderate, positive emotion, like that associated with authentic gratitude, enhances memory consolidation through the hippocampus and amygdala. But there may be something more specific at work. Grateful people tend to remember positive events more vividly, and to recall more positive events overall than less grateful people. Over time, this means that the grateful mind is literally building a different autobiographical story, a history that holds more evidence of connection, care, and meaning, because that is what it learned to notice and preserve. Hope and gratitude are neurologically related. This connection has intrigued some researchers, because hope is often categorized as a forward-looking emotion, oriented toward the future, while gratitude is typically oriented toward the past or present. But studies of brain activity have found that both emotions activate overlapping regions of the prefrontal cortex and limbic system. Researchers now believe that a regular practice of gratitude may, over time, strengthen the neural circuitry involved in hopeful thinking. By repeatedly returning to evidence that good things exist and that life contains things worth appreciating, the brain begins to expect that good things may come. Gratitude, in this sense, quietly plants the seeds of hope. Gratitude has been connected to one of the quieter virtues, patience. Research published in Psychological Science found that people who were guided into a state of genuine gratitude before making economic choices showed measurably greater patience than those in neutral or even happy emotional states. They were more willing to wait for a larger reward rather than accepting something smaller immediately. This effect appears to be specific to gratitude, distinct from general positive mood. The brain in a state of appreciation, it seems, is less driven by urgency. It can afford to wait, because it has already noticed something worth staying for. Self-compassion and gratitude are deeply intertwined. Researchers studying both have found that they activate similar neural circuits and produce complementary effects. Gratitude, as typically studied, involves recognizing good things that exist outside oneself, in others, in circumstances, in the world. Self-compassion involves turning a similar quality of appreciation toward oneself. Studies have found that gratitude practice frequently increases self-compassion as a secondary effect, as if the brain, once trained to notice goodness in the world, gradually learns to extend that same gentle perception inward. For people who are hard on themselves, the path to self-compassion may sometimes begin not with self-directed exercises, but with the simpler practice of noticing what is good around them. Gratitude appears to have measurable effects on creativity and flexible thinking. People in a state of genuine positive emotion, including gratitude, show broader, more open-ended thinking in cognitive tests. They are more likely to make novel associations between unrelated ideas, more likely to find unexpected solutions to problems, and more likely to approach challenges with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Psychologist Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory describes this phenomenon. Positive emotions. By widening the brain's attention and cognitive scope, allow us to build psychological resources that extend well beyond the moment. Gratitude, in this framework, is not just a feeling. It is a broadening of the mind's aperture, gently expanding what the heart can hold and what the mind can carry. The relationship between gratitude and social generosity is bidirectional. Grateful people are more likely to act generously, to volunteer, to donate, to offer help without expectation of return, and generous behavior, in turn, tends to generate more gratitude. Researchers call this a positive feedback loop, a cycle in which appreciation leads to giving, which leads to connection, which leads to more appreciation. Oxytocin is involved in both directions of this loop. At each turn, the chemistry of bonding is reinforced. The grateful person becomes, over time, more embedded in a network of mutual care, and the brain, embedded in that network, is a safer, more supported, more socially nourished brain. There is evidence that gratitude practice can meaningfully reduce symptoms of envy and social comparison. Social comparison, the tendency to measure one's own life against the lives of others, is associated with decreased well-being, increased anxiety, and a persistent sense of inadequacy. Gratitude, by redirecting attention toward what one actually has and values, weakens the neural habit of comparison. It is not that grateful people stop noticing what others have. It is that the relative weight of that noticing decreases. The brain, trained to locate sufficiency within its own life, spends less energy scanning for evidence of what is lacking. Envy requires a particular kind of attention, one that gratitude, quietly and persistently, tends to redirect. Workplace research has added another dimension to the science of gratitude. Studies of employee well-being and organizational behavior have found that employees who feel recognized and appreciated are significantly less likely to leave their jobs, more likely to perform at high levels, and more likely to report positive relationships with colleagues. The Gallup organization's research on recognition found that employees who felt genuinely appreciated were nearly 45% less likely to leave their organization within 2 years. Gratitude in professional contexts operates through the same neural pathways as personal gratitude, the same dopamine reinforcement, the same oxytocin-mediated social bonding, being seen and valued, it turns out, matters to the nervous system regardless of where it happens. Gratitude letters. Writing a message of genuine appreciation to someone who has mattered to you represent one of the most studied gratitude interventions in positive psychology. The effects extend beyond the person writing. Research by Martin Seligman, who pioneered the systematic study of positive psychology, found that people who wrote and then personally delivered a gratitude letter to someone they appreciated showed measurable increases in happiness, lasting up to 1 month. Both the writer and the recipient benefited. The neural effects of being witnessed, truly acknowledged, appear to be lasting. The letter, in this sense, is not merely a kind gesture. It is a carefully aimed dose of the chemistry of belonging, delivered to 2 nervous systems at once. Halfway through our journey tonight, something clear is emerging. Gratitude is not a soft add-on to a healthy life. It is woven through the body's most fundamental regulatory systems: the stress response, the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the brain's patterns of learning and memory. It connects the inner world to the outer world through the chemistry of bonding and social perception. It changes what the brain remembers, what it notices, and what it expects. And the research, grown more sophisticated and more persuasive with each passing year, continues to point in the same direction. The grateful life is, at the level of the body, a measurably healthier one. The grateful mind is, at the level of the brain, a measurably more resilient one. The answer to why gratitude matters is becoming, slowly, beautifully legible. Every memory you trust as real was actually rebuilt the last time you remembered it, gently revised, softened or sharpened, made a little more yours. Right now, tonight is becoming a memory. What you carry forward from it is still being decided. Your brain is writing a version of this night that will belong only to you. And we continue the journey. Gratitude has a measurable effect on how we experience time. People in a state of genuine appreciation tend to report feeling less rushed, less pressured by the passing of time, more able to remain in the present moment. Researchers studying mindfulness and positive emotion have found that gratitude and present moment awareness are closely linked, that the practice of one tends to reinforce the other. Time, it seems, moves differently in a grateful mind, not slower in any mechanical sense, but fuller, more inhabited. There is something in the act of noticing what is good that also teaches the mind to stay where it is, that what is here is worth remaining for. The brain's default mode network, the set of regions active when the mind is not focused on a specific task, the network responsible for mind wandering, self-referential thought, and the quiet hum of internal narration, is influenced by gratitude. Studies show that people higher in trait gratitude show different patterns of default mode network activity. Less rumination, less negative self-referential processing, more of the gentle, associative kind of thinking associated with reflection and creativity. The grateful brain, at rest, is engaged in a quieter kind of conversation with itself. Not a silence exactly, but a softer voice, one that is more likely to notice what is well than to rehearse what went wrong. Children can experience and express gratitude. and the development of this capacity appears to follow a gradual neural maturation. Very young children tend toward immediate, egocentric thinking. They can feel happy when they receive something, but the social complexity of recognizing a gift, appreciating its cost to the giver, and feeling moved by the relationship it represents requires cognitive development. Research suggests that by early adolescence, many children are capable of the kind of nuanced, other-directed gratitude that activates the social brain circuitry most strongly. Teaching gratitude practices in childhood may help wire these circuits during a particularly sensitive window. The grateful child may be laying neural groundwork that will support their emotional and social health across a lifetime. Gratitude and forgiveness share overlapping neural territory in the brain. Both involve a kind of intentional reappraisal, a choice to look at a situation from a broader perspective, one that places the difficult moment within a larger context. Studies have found that gratitude practice can support the capacity for forgiveness, not by excusing harm, but by strengthening the prefrontal cortex's ability to hold complexity. The brain that is trained to locate good things can more readily hold two truths at once: that something hurt, and that life also contains care. Forgiveness, in this framework, is not the erasure of pain. It is the expansion of the frame. There is research suggesting that gratitude can change not only how we feel about others, but how they feel about us. When we express genuine appreciation to another person, we alter their neurochemistry, triggering oxytocin, activating their social reward circuits, signaling that they matter, but we also alter how they perceive us. Studies of interpersonal gratitude have found that people who express thanks authentically are rated more warmly, more trustworthy, and more worth investing in by those they appreciate. Gratitude, in social perception, appears to be one of the most efficient ways to strengthen a relationship, not because it is flattery, but because it is true attention. And true attention to another person is one of the rarest and most valued forms of generosity. The body's response to gratitude includes changes in breathing. When genuine appreciation is felt, breathing tends to slow and deepen, moving toward the longer exhalations associated with parasympathetic activation. This is part of why gratitude and relaxation feel so similar in the body, because physiologically, they engage many of the same mechanisms. Long, slow exhalations activate the vagus nerve, the primary conduit of the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve, when stimulated, signals safety throughout the body. Heart rate falls, muscles soften, digestion resumes. The body enters the quiet, productive state that supports recovery and rest. Gratitude, breathed, becomes something the whole body participates in. The practice of gratitude at the end of the day has specific neurological effects related to sleep. When the mind reviews the day through the lens of appreciation, identifying moments of kindness, beauty, connection, or small satisfactions, it activates the hippocampus in a way that supports memory consolidation during sleep. The sleeping brain is selective. It processes and stores what emotional significance flags as worth keeping. A day reviewed with gratitude sends more positive, meaningful content into the consolidation process. The dreams that follow may be influenced. The memories retained may be softer. Sleep, entered through appreciation, may be doing slightly different work than sleep entered through worry. And that work, accumulated across thousands of nights, shapes who we become. Gratitude reduces what psychologists call emotional exhaustion, a state of depletion in which the emotional resources available for connection, engagement, and care feel spent. Emotional exhaustion is a central feature of burnout, and it is remarkably common in professions that require sustained compassion, such as nursing, teaching, and caregiving. Studies of healthcare professionals who engaged in gratitude practices reported decreased emotional exhaustion and decreased symptoms of burnout compared to control groups. Something about the regular practice of noticing what is good, even amid difficulty, perhaps especially amid difficulty, appears to partially replenish what stress depletes. It does not remove the difficulty, but it may help the person carrying it find their footing again. The word gratitude shares its linguistic root with grace. In many traditions, grace means something freely given, unearned, not contingent on merit, simply offered. Psychologists who study gratitude from a phenomenological perspective note that this quality, the sense of having received something you did not necessarily deserve, from a source larger than yourself, is often present in the most profound experiences of gratitude people describe. This is offered here as a personal reflection, not a scientific claim, but it suggests something that the neuroscience, in its own language, appears to confirm: that the deepest gratitude is often connected to a sense of being part of something larger than the self. The brain that feels truly grateful feels, at some level, held by something it did not create and cannot fully explain. Recent research has begun to explore the relationship between gratitude and the brain's response to beauty. Studies in neuroaesthetics, the science of how the brain processes beauty, have found that positive emotional states, including gratitude, lower the threshold at which the brain responds to beauty in the environment. A grateful person perceives more beauty in the world, not because more beautiful things exist, but because the brain's filtering has been adjusted. More of what is there gets through. The same room, the same afternoon light, the same ordinary face, seen with grateful eyes, carries more. This may be, at its simplest, one of the most practical gifts the science of gratitude has to offer. The world, unchanged, can be more beautiful, because the instrument doing the seeing has changed. Gratitude appears to affect how the brain processes failure and setback. People with higher baseline gratitude, when confronted with failure, show less prolonged activation in the brain regions associated with threat and self-criticism, and faster return toward baseline emotional functioning. They are not less affected by failure, but the duration of the downturn is shorter. Researchers believe this reflects a more established habit of reappraisal. The brain has practiced, through gratitude, the capacity to hold difficult experiences within a broader context. Failure, for a grateful person, is still real, but it is less likely to become the defining story of the moment. There is more context surrounding it. and context is, in the brain's accounting, a form of relief. The physiology of gratitude overlaps considerably with the physiology of awe, that sense of vastness, humility, and expansion that arises in the presence of something much larger than oneself. Both gratitude and awe reduce the default mode network's self-referential chatter. Both activate the prefrontal cortex and soften threat-related responses. Both appear to make the individual feel meaningfully embedded in something beyond their own concerns. Researchers studying awe have found that it reduces inflammatory signaling in the body, supports pro-social behavior, and enhances a sense of meaning and purpose. Gratitude and awe, in the body, may be close cousins, two different paths into the same quieter, more connected state. Gratitude has been found to offer some support in the face of difficult experiences. Studies of people navigating significant stress have found that those who maintained gratitude practices reported greater capacity to continue, lower rates of developing persistent distress, and, among those who did struggle, faster rates of recovery. This is not to suggest that gratitude can prevent or erase deep pain, but it appears to be one of the factors that influences how the nervous system processes and metabolizes what happened over time. The grateful nervous system, held in better regulatory balance, may be more capable of the gradual work of integrating difficult experience, of moving it from acute wound to carried memory. This is a very gentle kind of strength, the kind that accumulates quietly and reveals itself when it is needed most. The phenomenon of gratitude journaling has a close and scientifically supported cousin, the gratitude letter that is written but never sent. Research has found that the act of writing in detail about someone who has helped you, expressing genuine appreciation even in a document no one else will read, produces measurable increases in well-being and reductions in depressive symptoms. Brain changes associated with gratitude were still visible on imaging scans months after participants had written and never delivered a single letter. The brain, it seems, does not require an audience to access some of the benefits of expressed appreciation. What matters, in part, is the quality of attention, the act of turning fully towards someone who mattered, and letting that mattering be named. We have now traveled far enough into the science of gratitude to see its shape more clearly. This is not a story about a pleasant feeling that makes difficult things seem fine. It is a story about a fundamental biological state, ancient, reliable, and deeply beneficial, that the body knows how to enter, and that science is now able to describe in increasing detail. Gratitude activates the brain's most sophisticated regions. It changes the chemistry of stress and recovery. It reshapes neural sensitivity over time. It supports the heart, the immune system, and the quality of sleep. It connects us more deeply to others, and it protects the aging brain. The science has grown large enough now to say clearly, gratitude is not supplementary to health. It is one of health's most quietly powerful foundations. The relationship between gratitude and creative work has been observed in writers, artists, and musicians who describe their practice as deeply intertwined with a kind of radical appreciation. This is offered as observational reflection rather than formal research. But it aligns with the scientific finding that positive emotional states broaden cognitive scope. Artists who have spoken about gratitude as a creative practice describe it as an orientation, a way of paying attention that makes the ordinary vivid. The unremarkable becomes worth examining. The familiar becomes strange and newly interesting. Gratitude, in this dimension, is not merely a wellness practice. It may be one of the deepest forms of aesthetic engagement available to the human mind. Gratitude and meaning are connected in ways researchers are actively exploring. Meaning, the sense that one's life matters, that what one does has value, that one is part of something larger, is one of the most robust predictors of well-being and longevity in the psychological literature. Gratitude appears to support a sense of meaning through several pathways. By reinforcing awareness of relationships and connection, by highlighting positive contributions others have made to one's life, and by situating the individual within a network of mutual care and significance, the grateful person tends to feel that their life has more meaning, not because their circumstances are objectively more meaningful, but because they are more consistently attending to the parts of their life that carry it. Gratitude and meaning may be, in the deepest sense, the same kind of noticing. There is something that researchers call gratitude fatigue, the dulling of the practice when it becomes routine, performed without genuine engagement. This is why the frequency findings matter. 3 times per week, rather than daily, helps preserve the freshness of genuine attention. It is also why specificity matters. The more vividly and concretely you can locate what you are grateful for, the more the brain engages. The generic fades into habit. The particular stays alive. The science of gratitude, at this level, is also a science of attention, of learning to meet the ordinary with enough curiosity that it does not become invisible. Gratitude and sleep may share a common mechanism in their effects on the autonomic nervous system. Both the transition into deep sleep and the physiological state of genuine appreciation involve a shift toward parasympathetic dominance. The body moving away from alert, reactive vigilance, and toward the quieter internal work of repair. For people who struggle to wind down at night, gratitude practice in the evening may serve a dual function. It directly calms the nervous system through the mechanisms already described, and it provides the pre-sleep mind with content that is safe, warm, and sufficient. A mind reviewing what was good today has less need to rehearse what it feared. And fear, more than almost anything, keeps the door to sleep from opening. The cultural diversity of gratitude has itself become a subject of scientific inquiry. Researchers studying gratitude across different cultures have found that while the emotion appears to be universal, present in every culture studied, its expression, its targets, and its social functions vary considerably. In some cultures, gratitude is expressed freely and frequently in interpersonal contexts. In others, it is held internally, expressed through action rather than words, or directed primarily toward nature, ancestors, or a divine presence. These cultural variations do not diminish the universality of the emotion. They suggest, instead, that gratitude is a deep and flexible feature of human emotional life, one that finds different forms of expression while serving the same fundamental function, connecting the individual to the larger web of existence that supports them. the science of gratitude has begun to intersect with the science of aging in increasingly meaningful ways. As populations in many countries grow older, there is heightened interest in the psychological factors that support healthy cognitive and emotional aging. The 2025 findings linking gratitude to better cognitive function and differences in key brain volumes suggest that gratitude may be relevant not just to quality of life, but to the protection of the aging brain itself. Dementia is one of the most feared conditions of later life, and researchers have identified a range of modifiable risk factors. While gratitude is not yet formally on that list, the growing evidence of its supportive effects on the aging brain makes it a thoughtful candidate for future investigation. The body carries stress in posture, in tightened shoulders, a braced jaw, a chest held slightly closed. These postural patterns are often below conscious awareness, maintained not by deliberate decision, but by the nervous system's ongoing assessment of how much safety the environment contains. Gratitude, by altering that assessment, changes the body's posture over time. People who practice gratitude regularly have been observed to carry themselves differently in subtle ways, with a quality of openness in the face and chest that reflects, physically, the internal state of the nervous system. The grateful body does not brace against the world. It has less reason to. There is growing evidence that the practice of gratitude may have particular value during periods of significant stress or difficulty, not as a bypass of that difficulty, but as a sustaining presence within it. People who maintained gratitude practices during periods of illness, grief, or professional hardship reported not that gratitude made things easier, but that it made them more capable of continuing, as if gratitude were a kind of fuel, not one that removes the distance to be traveled, but one that makes the traveling possible. The science supports this. Gratitude's effect on cortisol, on the body's stress load, and on the emotional regulation capacity of the prefrontal cortex suggests that it genuinely increases the resources available for coping. It may not lighten the weight, but it appears to strengthen the one carrying it. Sleep research has found that the quality of emotional experience in the hour before sleep significantly influences the architecture of sleep itself. The proportion of slow-wave sleep and REM sleep achieved, and the emotional tone of dreaming. Negative rumination in the pre-sleep period is associated with suppressed slow-wave sleep and more emotionally charged REM content. Positive emotional engagement, including gratitude, is associated with a more complete and restorative sleep architecture. The hour before sleep, in this sense, is not a neutral waiting room. It is an emotional environment that the brain actively uses. What you bring into that hour becomes, to some degree, the quality of the night that follows. The answer to what gratitude really is, and why it matters so deeply, has grown clearer over the course of our journey tonight. It is not a luxury of the fortunate. It is not a cognitive trick for suppressing negative emotion. It is a biological state with deep evolutionary roots, one that appears to have been selected for because it supports the conditions most essential for human flourishing: connection, rest, repair, and the maintenance of the social bonds that make survival possible. Gratitude tells the nervous system that the present moment is safe enough to inhabit fully, and the nervous system, receiving that signal, responds with some of the most profound and beneficial changes it is capable of producing. Tonight, simply by being here and listening, you have been participating in that signal. You might be feeling tired now. That's perfectly fine. Sleep doesn't arrive when you try harder for it. It arrives when you stop trying. This is exactly that moment. There is nothing left to understand tonight. The understanding has already happened. You can set it down. Let everything that was held release now. The body knows the way from here. We're almost there. Gratitude does not require extraordinary circumstances. The research consistently shows that people who benefit most from gratitude practice are often not people with objectively easier lives. They are people who have learned a different quality of attention, one that notices the small and the present and the real. A cup of water, a conversation that asked nothing of you, the weight of your own body, resting, ordinary things, seen clearly. The brain does not distinguish clearly between remembering gratitude and feeling it now. When we recall a moment of genuine appreciation from the past, many of the same neural circuits activate as if the moment were happening again. The memory of a kindness received can calm the nervous system in the present. The past, in this sense, is never entirely gone. It is a resource, available. Gratitude has been practiced consciously, deliberately, as a formal discipline across thousands of years and dozens of traditions. Ancient Stoic philosophers wrote about returning the mind to appreciation as a protection against suffering. Indigenous cultures around the world have maintained rituals of communal thanksgiving as a central feature of social life. The neuroscience is new, but the wisdom, it seems, was always there. The hypothalamus, a small structure at the base of the brain that regulates body temperature, hunger, sleep, and emotional responses, is activated by gratitude. This places thankfulness in direct relationship with some of the body's most fundamental regulatory systems, sleep among them. Gratitude reaches, through the hypothalamus, into the very machinery of rest. When the body is in a genuine state of appreciation, the face softens, the muscles around the eyes and mouth relax, the jaw unclenches, breathing slows. These are not performances of feeling. They are the body's honest response to a nervous system that has been given reason to rest. And you may notice this in your own face right now. The simple permission of this moment. Enough. Gratitude supports what psychologists call psychological flexibility, the ability to hold difficult thoughts and feelings without being controlled by them. A flexible psychological state does not avoid pain. It makes room for pain without collapsing. Research shows that gratitude practice supports this flexibility. Over time, in measurable ways, the grateful mind learns to hold more without breaking. The experience of beauty and the experience of gratitude may share a common emotional grammar. Both ask something similar of us: to stop, to notice, and to be moved by what is actually there. A scientist might describe this as attentional reallocation toward the present environment. A poet might call it waking up. Both are describing the same thing. There is research suggesting that people who feel genuinely grateful are perceived as warmer, more generous, and more trustworthy by those around them. even when those around them have no explicit information about the person's gratitude practice. Something in the quality of a grateful person's attention communicates itself. The body, in a state of appreciation, is open in ways the nervous system of others can read. Gratitude appears to reduce social comparison sensitivity, the degree to which one's mood is affected by measuring one's life against the lives of others. In a world saturated with images of what other people have and achieve, the capacity to be genuinely at ease within one's own life is increasingly rare. And increasingly, it seems, what the research points toward as protective, not indifference to the world, presence within one's own. The relationship between gratitude and the vagus nerve is one of the more physiologically precise findings in this field. The vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in the body, running from the brainstem to the abdominal organs, carries signals of safety and rest throughout the body. Practices that support vagal tone reduce inflammation, lower heart rate, and calm the stress response. Gratitude, by activating the parasympathetic system, appears to be one of the activities that supports this calming pathway. The thankful breath is, in the most literal sense, a healing one. Sleep is where the brain does its most essential maintenance. During deep, slow-wave sleep, the brain's glymphatic system, a network of channels that clear metabolic waste, becomes most active. During REM sleep, the brain consolidates memory and processes emotion. Both phases depend on a nervous system that is genuinely at rest. Gratitude, by supporting the transition into that rest, may quietly support this nightly maintenance, making it deeper, more complete. Research on the relationship between gratitude and meaning in aging has produced some of the most quietly resonant findings in the field. Older adults who reported higher levels of gratitude also reported stronger senses of purpose, greater engagement with life, and lower rates of existential distress. Gratitude may be, in the later chapters of life, a particularly sustaining form of orientation, a way of returning, again and again, to the evidence that the life has contained things worth having lived for. Gratitude letters, written to people long gone, to a teacher remembered from childhood, a grandparent, a friend from another chapter of life, have been found to produce meaningful emotional benefits for the writer. The recipient need not receive the letter. What matters, it seems, is the act of turning one's full attention towards someone who mattered, and letting that matter be named. The body during genuine gratitude is, in many ways, the body in its most natural state. The stress hormones are low. The nervous system is in its rest mode. The social brain circuits are active. The breath is slow and deep. This is not an altered state. It is the state the body was, in some sense, designed to return to. The alarm is an adaptation. The peace is the original. So could the practice of gratitude change how we understand health and well-being? It already has. The 2024 JAMA psychiatry study linking grateful living to a 9% reduction in all-cause mortality changed the conversation. The Harvard data, the Berkeley brain imaging studies, the sleep research. Taken together, they describe a state that the body values deeply, protects, and rewards. The science has given gratitude a new kind of gravity, a weight proportional to its actual effects. The gentlest facts are often the most durable. Gratitude costs nothing. It requires no special equipment, no particular intelligence, no unique circumstances. It asks only for attention, a moment of noticing, and the body, receiving that attention, does something with it that reaches into the deepest layers of biology. The heart steadies, the breath deepens, the nervous system rests. You have been breathing throughout this journey. That breath, slow and steady now, moving through a body that is settling towards sleep, is itself a kind of answer to everything the science of gratitude describes. The body, resting, is a body that trusts the present moment. That is all gratitude ever asks, to trust this moment enough to be in it. The neural changes associated with gratitude practice do not require a lifetime to begin. Research suggests that meaningful changes in brain activity are detectable within 3 to 4 weeks of a regular gratitude practice. 3 weeks of noticing what is good. The brain, in that time, has already begun the quiet work of becoming a more grateful instrument of perception. There is one more finding worth carrying into sleep. In the Harvard longevity study, the protective effect of gratitude persisted after controlling for optimism. The general tendency to expect good outcomes. Gratitude and optimism overlap, but they are not the same. Gratitude is more grounded, more present tense. It is not the expectation of good things to come. It is the recognition of good things that are already here. The grateful mind does not need the future to arrive in order to rest. It can rest in what is already present. That is a particularly useful capacity at the end of a long day. The most grateful people in the research studies are not people without difficulty. They are people who have somehow learned to hold difficulty alongside what is also true, that the day contained one moment of kindness, that the body is still breathing, that someone, somewhere, knows their name. These are small things, and small things, held with genuine attention, are often enough. In the deepest studies of human flourishing, across psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, and medicine, gratitude appears again and again as something foundational, not a tool for happiness, a capacity for presence, the ability to meet what is real without needing it to be different, and in that meeting, to find something that is, in its own quiet way, sufficient. Sleep comes most easily to a nervous system that believes it is safe. Gratitude is one of the most reliable signals that safety exists. Tonight, the science has made its case. The body has listened. And now, the only thing left is to let the knowing settle into rest. The brain that listened to gratitude tonight, even only by receiving these words, has touched these neural pathways, has reminded the reward circuits of what they are designed to receive, has given the parasympathetic system a reason to lead. Something small has shifted, something worth keeping. There is a version of you that carries this quietly forward into tomorrow. That pauses at some small thing, light on a surface, the warmth of a drink, a familiar voice, and, without making anything of it, notices. That is all. One noticing, and the brain, faithfully, records it as good. The real science of gratitude is not in a study. It is in the body that is breathing more slowly now, in the mind that has grown quieter across this hour, in the simple fact that you are here, in this moment, which has always been enough. The grateful life does not require more. It requires only this: the willingness to meet what is here, and to let it matter. That is the whole of it, and you have always known how. And so, our quiet journey through the science of gratitude comes gently to a close. We began in the prefrontal cortex, in the neural corridors where thankfulness is born, and discovered along the way that something as simple as noticing what is good can reach into the body's most fundamental systems. The heart, the immune response, the architecture of sleep itself. We traveled from the first dopamine signal that fires when you feel genuinely thankful, to the Harvard researchers who followed nearly 50,000 lives and found that grateful people lived measurably longer, particularly protected from the weight of heart disease. From the neural sensitivity left by a gratitude letter written and never sent, to the quiet fact that the brain, once trained to notice goodness, begins to expect it. We glimpsed that gratitude is both ancient and biological, both personal and social, both a practice and a gift that the body already knows how to receive. What the science of gratitude shows us, in the end, is that noticing what is good is not separate from being well. It is one of the ways the body knows how to heal. Much of what gratitude does happens in silence, in the slow return of the nervous system to its resting state, in the nightly consolidation of what the day contained, in the long, patient work of a brain learning to see more of what is already there. Gratitude does not fix what is broken, but it tends to the one who is carrying it. Without that tending, the carrying becomes harder. By pausing, even for a moment, to notice what is real and good, we give the body what it most needs to continue. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about how every moment of genuine thankfulness you have ever felt, every small recognition, every quiet warmth, every time you were moved by something that asked nothing of you in return, all of those moments are still inside you. The brain keeps them, not perfectly, not permanently, but they shaped the pathways. They contributed to who you are right now. Here, breathing in the dark, you are the sum of every small noticing, every grateful breath, every moment you chose to see what was good. Let your entire being dissolve into that recognition that what you already are, right now, has always been enough. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If this journey through the science of gratitude helped quiet your thoughts tonight, a gentle subscribe means another sleepy mind will find their way here too. One quiet moment of sharing, one more soul who gets to rest. That matters. The brain's nightly maintenance is still unfolding right now, without your effort, without your watching. You don't need to hold any of this. It was never yours to carry. You've traveled inward tonight, through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the quiet architecture of what it means to be a grateful mind, and found it closer to home than you expected. You can allow these thoughts of gratitude to fade now, like the warmth of a held cup slowly returning to the air. Not gone, simply released back into everything, leaving only the soft, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you've been carrying today is being gently sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way gratitude does, not with force, but with quiet recognition, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the science will still be there. The brain's quiet wisdom will still be becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, sleepy soul, and remember, the grateful mind has always had enough. Good night.